So, folks, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I don't have my camera on, sorry. At whatever time, 6:09 p.m. I'm sorry, I thought I printed the agenda, and the agenda doesn't just print, it prints about 6,000 pages. So that everybody knows, we're asking that everybody mute themselves. And if you press *6, you can unmute yourself. And you can press *9, and that will allow you to raise your hand. And so if you have a question like to be recognized, you'll have to do the *9 to raise your hand. Matt and Mark are going to be my assistants in making sure I don't miss anybody who wants to be recognized. We do allow, pardon? We do allow the public and staff and a chance to speak after additions and deletions to the agenda. We give a 4-minute maximum presentation, and action may not be able to be taken on something just brought up at the by members of the public or members of the staff. And we just remind everybody that written correspondence prior to a board meeting allows for the board to be better prepared and possibly take action on any topic that somebody may ask. We have
Rich?
Yes.
One quick thing. The *6 and *9 are only if you've called in on the telephone. If you've connected on the computer, then you go to participants. There's a raise hand function there, and that's what you'll use to let us know that you want to speak. Thank you.
There you go, folks. So I am not as smart as I once thought I was, telling you guys that. So is everybody good with that? Does anybody have any questions? There was one other note I wrote myself, and I'm having trouble finding it. I just wanted to clarify a couple new processes that we're following. We will wait until the board has a quorum and that we can see the quorum before we let the public and staff and anybody other than those involved in the meeting with the board in, so that we can kind of better control what's happening. Last time there was a lot of discussion prior to the board meeting being called to order, which was very inappropriate. The other issue is that we cannot talk about specific students, even if you want to say, call up and say, well, my student so-and-so, that is a real taboo for us, and it's really something we're not allowed to do. So please, you will be muted if you start being specific about your child or a specific student. And also, if you have any issues that you feel a staff member, be it a custodian up through the superintendent, has an issue, that you have an issue with them, the public forum is not the place to bring that up. So there are ways to bring that up, and you have to write a letter, or there is a policy for that, and we can review that with anybody that ever has any questions. I am in the phone book. You can give me a phone call. You can call the school and ask Lori or Matt or Tammy or Jennifer over in Wardsboro, and they can get you a contact information for me. So I hope that covers that, and I hope everybody understands that. And I'll move to additions or deletions to the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Mark and Matt, just give me a thumbs up if there's nothing coming from anybody. Oh, we got through the first couple items really well. Members of the public, is there anybody from the public who would like to speak? And again, we do allow people to speak. Some boards, this is the only time the public and the staff get to speak. We do allow public and staff to speak when we're discussing specific items. But this is if there's something that's not on the agenda you'd like to discuss or like to make us aware of, or you'd like to tell us that you just won the lottery and you're going to donate $1 million to the school or to me. Nothing from the public?
There's no one.
Okay, Matt's shaking his head too. Then I'll move on to members of the staff. Lori O'Hearn, you didn't use your raise your hand function.
I know, I can't find it on here. I'm so sorry.
I can't either, so don't feel bad.
Okay, all right. I am just asking whether or not you would like me to read the letter that I wrote, if it's, or not, or would that be later?
Yeah, I would love to have you read it. Let's do it under review
Okay.
correspondence, if you don't mind.
Nope, that's,
Okay. Mark and Matt, we good? Thank you. Review and approve the minutes of the November 2nd, 2020 meeting. I need a motion to approve the minutes, please.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of November 2nd, 2020.
Kate, would you like to second that?
Yes, please. I would like the second.
Okay, so Mark
moved.
moved and Kate seconded. Mark, you have any comments, corrections?
I do, and I apologize. I have not had a chance to read it over in great detail, but I found a few small things. On page 3, towards the bottom under public, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th dash down. It's not BNB, it's BBA.
Just clarify, that's Burr and Burton, is that correct?
I'm sorry, you were garbled.
Peter,
That's
yes,
Burr and
it's you did Burton, and it's Burton Academy, and I don't think it's an and. I think it's Burton, but I'm not sure. So it's.
Will do.
Go ahead, Mark.
On page 5, under principals report, first line, I suggested for the next meeting, that was for the fall benchmark data that I suggested we get year-over-year review. On page 7, the second paragraph, I might be misunderstanding this, but in the first line, you have Mr. Anton confirmed that the installation involved only the Wardsboro bus. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but it's actually 3 buses, which you have in the next sentence.
It was only one bus that didn't belong to us, the Wardsboro bus that runs, that West River runs for us.
So that's probably what it was referring to.
Yes.
And that was all I caught in my cursory view.
Will that be changed?
Yes, Peter, if you can just change that, we'll move, the motion will be as amended.
Will do.
Kate, are you good with that? Does anybody else have any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
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 Rick, you good?
Good.
Laura here?
Aye.
Where's Laura? Oh, down there. Okay, so it looks like it's a unanimous vote. It is a unanimous vote. Peter, you good to move on?
10-4.
Okay, I have, for correspondence, we have several. I think I have 3 parent letters. I think one parent wrote 2 letters. And I think I have, and we have the staff letter. So if it's okay, Lori agreed to read the staff letter. So let me read our letter and then I'll give you guys a break from listening to me. So we have a letter dated 11/2 from Heather Bedard. This was for the last meeting. I'm sorry. Okay, so we had a letter that was on 11/2 that we did not get to read at the last meeting. And then they rewrote it on 11/10. is that parent here today? Yes, I see you. Do you
Is
want-
that my letter, Rick? Amanda
Yes.
Jackson. So I'm
Yes.
writing as a staff member. We don't need to read the 11-2 letter because that was written prior to the board meeting.
Okay.
But the 11-10 was in response to November 2nd's board meeting.
Do you have it? Would you like to read it instead of me, or do you want me to read it?
I can read it. It's fine.
Okay, I'll let you read it if nobody has a problem with that.
Okay. So I write to you in response to the board meeting held Monday, November 2nd. During this meeting, the board failed to make a motion to follow the recommendation given by the WCSU COVID-19 coordinator to hold remote learning for 2 weeks following the Thanksgiving break. As stated in Jorda's letter, going into remote learning would be a proactive attempt to prevent the spread of COVID-19 within our community. My hope is for school to remain in person for the duration of the school year. In-person learning is the best option for all involved, but staying safe and healthy needs to be a priority. Since the beginning of COVID, we've been following the guidelines and advice from the COVID coordinator, with the exception of opening in person to start the school year. In-person learning has gone quite well. The weather is now turning, resulting in doors and windows closed and learning staying indoors as opposed to outside. COVID cases have tripled in the state of Vermont since this summer and continue to increase. There is nowhere one can travel outside of Vermont that does not require quarantining upon arrival back to the state. If you do not allow this time for families to appropriately quarantine, I fear they sorry if I'm going too fast. I fear they will decide to travel regardless and return to school without quarantining. People generally choose to do the right thing and will want to follow the guidelines, but they will also not want their children to miss any in-person learning opportunities. I do not feel safe proceeding with teaching in person following a long break. As Matt Martin stated in the recent board meeting, 60% of his staff is within a high-risk group. This does not include those of us who have family members at home who also fall at the at-risk category. Please reconsider to make a motion and add remote learning following the holiday breaks. This is the safest and best option in order to keep our families and children safe and healthy while remaining in person for the duration of the school year. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you for reading that for me, Amanda. I have another one from a Karina Martin, and I see she's here. Karina, do you want to read it, or you want me to read the letter for you?
I did not intend to read it. If it must be read, you're welcome to. It was just correspondence that I was told to send out to the whole board after I had reached out to our principal and a couple of board members individually.
Okay. So I'm going to read the letter. It was in the packet. I don't know if everybody got to see the packet, but I think it's good to just run through it. So if you don't mind, Karina, I'm going to read it the best I can for you. I am a parent with 2 children in Wardsboro Elementary School. The COVID coordinator's recommendation is switch to remote instruction for 2 weeks after Thanksgiving break arose the week before the board's November 2nd meeting and was communicated to Wardsboro families in Principal Bates' Friday afternoon newsletter. Accordingly, there was not much time before the board met for staff or family to consider the issues. As a result, I feel the board and community were a bit blindsided and unprepared. Unfortunately, I was unable to observe the beginning of the board meeting as I had another meeting at the same time, but I heard Ms. Bovat, a WES teacher, speak and was very moved. I am beyond grateful to our teachers and staff for their willingness to open for in-person learning. Due to their efforts, we've been lucky recipients of months of in-person learning for our children that we may not have otherwise received. However, it may have come at a cost to our teachers. If they need a reprieve to relax, to allow them to see their families over the holidays and to come back to school confident instead of nervous, then I am in support of remote instruction after December break for a week or 2 to allow for a built-in quarantine period after Christmas. My hope is also that the time period will allow the students' families to enjoy their holidays and break and allow them to see family without needing to make the hard choices to keep their child from in-person learning. As of today, all non-essential travel to or from Vermont requires a quarantine. I think the argument that folks will not comply with the guidelines no matter what, or that this approach would provide extra time to travel is specious. I believe people want to do the right thing. Our schools need to be vigilant in enforcing the health screening requirements, which include questions regarding travel and now should include questions regarding contact with folks from outside Vermont that would require quarantine. You either have abided by the guidelines or in case quarantine is not required, or you have not, meaning quarantine or quarantine and test is required. I understand we do not have a perfect system as travel for many reasons, such as work is allowed. However, the guidelines exist to mitigate risk. Although we cannot eliminate all risk, I believe a proactive approach is the best option. My goals are to support the staff and teachers who are caring for our children every day and to increase the likelihood of in-person learning continuing. If the board were to take up the issue of a remote period after December break with more information on which to base a well-informed decision, such as those as a teacher's opinions, plans and family travel plans, and could do more than a month in advance of the break, everyone would have sufficient time to plan. Thank you. I also have a late arriving note that came in today. I just saw this, and one of the reasons I was late, I didn't get to check my emails this afternoon. And this is, dear school board members, some I was unable to be heard at the last school board meeting. I would like to bring, it probably was since I was unable to be heard at the last school board meeting. I would like to bring my thoughts forward. Just because children are less likely to transmit, it does not mean that they cannot transmit, but it is not just about the children. What about the teachers? Teachers are able to transmit among themselves, and what happens if a teacher gets sick? Then we have to all be tested and quarantined without warning. If we plan on keeping students home, we'll be able to plan for it instead of it being sprung upon us at the last minute. While routine is important for children, especially the younger students, I believe that their health and safety come first. Some people may not follow the rules with a 2-week remote learning and choose to be with family longer. However, the families that make the right choices to stay home in quarantine will be receiving a better education because the teachers will not have their time split between in-person learning and teacher-assisted learning. Our teachers are absolutely phenomenal, and they have done such an incredibly outstanding job. And I couldn't be more thankful for all the hard work they have poured into everything they are doing. But they have say they are, they're tired and exhausted. They don't get to see their families for breaks because they can't come home and properly quarantine because they aren't allowed to use their sick days for that. Vermont has done so well in the face of this epidemic because we, more so than any other state, have followed the guidelines set forth by the CDC. Is this where we draw the line? But we draw the line at the safety of our children in the community. Is this where we stop listening to the experts? Home is better than the hospital. Thank you for your time. And then I don't believe Matt or Bill or Tammy, I have any other stuff that came in, correct? Okay, so Lori, you're gonna save me and read yours, please.
Certainly. I have a meeting that's a letter that's addressed to the board. This letter is in response to the November 2nd RVUSD board meeting where the board did not take up a motion to consider the WCSU COVID-19 director's recommendation that Dover and Wardsboro schools go to remote learning for 2 weeks following the upcoming holiday breaks. The Wardsboro and Dover teachers and staff were requesting that the board consider a 1-week break following the Thanksgiving and December breaks in order to mitigate any potential spread of coronavirus to students, teachers, and staff. This would mean 4 remote days for students following each break. The Dover School and Elementary and Wardsboro Elementary special educator who have signed this letter are in agreement on this issue. Board member Mark Schauber stated that the November 2nd meeting that those who are not going to follow the rules and guidelines over the Thanksgiving and winter breaks are also not going to follow the rules and guidelines after those vacation holidays. While that may be true, it's worth considering that having time between each break and the return to school allows an opportunity for symptoms to present, thus preventing potential transmission before returning to school. If symptoms present during the remote week, COVID testing would be necessary. Research on COVID is disproving some of the early beliefs once thought to be true. One other point that board member Mark Schauber made was that when he said to remember that primary age school students are at lower risk for both getting and transmitting COVID. Science is not static, and the belief that children are not super spreaders has been proven false in a recent joint study published September 30th in the journal Science, conducted by researchers from Princeton Environmental Institute, Johns Hopkins University, and the UC Berkeley. A study of more than 500,000 people in India who were exposed to the novel coronavirus suggests that the virus's continued spread is driven only by a small percentage of those who become infected, known as super spreaders. The researchers found that children and young adults who made up 1/3 of COVID cases were especially key to transmitting the virus in the studied populations. Kids were very efficient transmitters in this setting, which is something that hadn't been firmly established in previous studies. Researchers found that reported cases and deaths have been more concentrated in younger cohorts than expected based on observations in higher income countries. The point here is that researchers continue to make discoveries about this virus on an ongoing basis, and what may have thought to have been true about COVID at one time may no longer be the case. At the November 2nd, 2020 RVUSD board meeting, Dover parent Heather Kelly spoke about how she and her family were quarantining after traveling recently, and we thank her family for doing so. She said that during the spring shutdown, her family was exposed to people who she knew personally weren't quarantining. She also said that during the holidays, Dover's population grows from 1,000 to 20,000 visitors, and any one of the parents who are on the frontline workers are going to be super exposed. Due to the necessity of their jobs, she and other parents are exposed to visitors who may not have quarantined. This is not the point she was trying to make, but it bears pointing out that during the busy Thanksgiving and December breaks, working frontline parents who may be exposed to the virus then could potentially expose their children to the virus, who could then transmit it unknowingly at school. Representative Laura Sibilia recognizes the seriousness of this virus to Vermonters and regularly sends out emails from the Vermont Department of Health to constituents. The latest was sent on November 8th, titled "Vermonters Urged to Take Action to Prevent the Spread of COVID-19 as Case Numbers Increase." Last Sunday, the Department of Health reported the largest one-day increase in COVID cases since the spring. From the email, many of the cases, clusters, and outbreaks are tracing back to social gatherings where masking and physical distancing break down. Canada also was reporting that their Thanksgiving has given rise to a spike in cases of COVID. This Thanksgiving, when families are gathered around a table in close proximity and masks are off, the same surge may happen here. Board Vice Chair Rick Thorpe asked for feedback on a compromise to go remote for a week following the break. We asked that the board consider this compromise. It would mean students would be remote for 4 school days following Thanksgiving and December breaks, as Wednesdays are remote days now. It would be a compromise for everyone. The Dover and Wardsboro teachers and staff have stepped up to the plate, and we've done everything asked of us to make sure students feel safe in school while working diligently to provide the best education possible. Every day, there is an underlying concern for us that someone is going to get sick, whether it be child or adult. Having the board approve the schools move to remote learning for 4 school days following the Thanksgiving and December breaks would signal that the board supports the RVUSD teachers and staff and recognizes our concerns. Ultimately, our goal is to keep everyone healthy so that we may continue with in-person learning. Thank you for your consideration. And it's signed by Dover teachers and 1 Wardsboro special educator.
Thank you for reading that for me, Lori. I just, because it was mentioned in a couple of letters, just as a point of, not a point of order, but just so people understand, the board doesn't make a motion on everything that gets brought before the board. And usually there's only certain things the board has to make motions on to approve. So I think that to say that the board didn't give, that the board didn't make a motion so people think that we didn't consider it is not true. I think last meeting we spent an hour and a half, hour and 3/4 on this topic. So we really did discuss it, and we let everybody but one person speak about it. And the only reason I stopped that was, and I was overruled by the board, was that we, we'd heard a lot of different things, and there was really no discussion. I didn't see that anybody was going to move that forward. So, and we did decide to allow that person to speak, but they left early. And the parent, if they're here, that I read their letter, the one I said I just got, and I am sorry, I usually try to read them ahead of time, so I stumbled on that one really badly. So I apologize on that one. So we've had 3 letters, 1 read by a parent, 2 read by us, and the staff letter. Is there any other letters that I'm missing or anything that came in after the fact?
I had sent one to you, Rich.
Who's that? I'm sorry.
Allison Young. I don't know which page I'm on for you.
I don't know. I don't have it. I'm really sorry.
That's okay. I'd sent it like the next morning or something.
Okay. Do you want to read it?
No, I don't have to read it. I just want to, if I could just paraphrase it. Some of the people have said tonight that preparation is key. And I just want to reiterate that because remote learning, it isn't benign. It's a lot of work and it's challenging. And it's certainly something I'm willing to do. But I think as a parent, the more notice I get, that was one of the, I had said in the letter that, the sooner we can know what you're thinking, the better it is for us and the easier we can make that transition for our kids at home. So definitely keeping that in mind. But the other piece that I had put in the email is that I think you guys would benefit greatly. And I said this at the last meeting, but I think communication with parents would be very, very helpful in advance of these meetings. And I spoke with one of my friends who's a staff member at Wardsboro, and she said that the teachers aren't really being spoken to either. No one's asking the questions. We have so much different stuff going on this year. And so to be touching base, parents are teaching their kids once a week. You've got food going from Dover to Wardsboro. You've got teachers who are working in a totally new world. Just you might really benefit from somebody being in charge of a communication, sort of a communication liaison position. So to help you guys through this, because you're sort of making decisions in a vacuum and they're obviously very impactful and it's uncomfortable for you guys to have to do that. So I would love to see, maybe a move toward getting someone who's maybe collecting this data for you and providing you with reporting on some of this stuff. That was it. Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify a couple things, that we do the chain of command. We don't the board members don't go to the staff. The staff has the staff is supervised by the administrators, and the administrators supervised by the superintendent, and that's the proper chain of command. So if the staff has an issue, they need to let the administrators know, and then the administrators let us know.
Well, then maybe not for the staff, just for the parents, that would be helpful for us, I think.
Okay, and then usually the parents talk to the staff members. So, and again, we put out an agenda ahead of the meeting, and I don't know how else we, again, we're not having live meetings, people aren't going out. So we're really doing the best we can. It's as difficult and as stressful, believe it or not, for the board as it probably is for everybody else. And some of the boards have some of the board members have a double stress because not only are they a board member, they're also a parent with kids in the middle of the school system. And there used to be some board members that were staffed in other buildings. So I do understand that. And we do try to get things out, and please, our minutes go online. I forgot to ask, are we recording this? Did somebody press record? Okay, thank you. And then the meetings are recorded and they're usually out within a few days. I think that Rich from the TV station and their people have been getting them out really quickly. And again, my phone number's in the phone book. Call me if you want to talk to me. I love to talk to people. So did I get everybody's letters? And Matt and Bill is gone now. So Matt and Tammy, yep, go ahead, Matt.
You did have a hand up in the crowd, Elena Louisu. I don't know if she's still on, but she had her hand up a bit ago.
Oh, I'm on, but I unraised it. Somebody was texting me that they were in the waiting room, but then they got out.
And the waiting room should be open now, right? Shouldn't be a waiting room anymore.
We still have a waiting room. I'd let them in as soon as they pop up on the screen, though.
Okay. So if there's no more letters or correspondence, we ready to move on?
Are we, Richard?
Yeah.
We're not,
Go ahead,
we're
Laura.
not, are we, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to our agenda. I'm having some technical issues. This is not further on our agenda this evening, is it?
No, it isn't.
So this would be the place for discussion.
If you want to discuss it, yes.
Okay. So, may I? Richard?
Yeah, you've got the floor.
So the one thing that I am, well, there's two things that I would like to say. First, thank you everyone for attending and for communicating. I think that's really important. Second, the thing that is really clear to me, and I'm struggling with all of the decisions that are being made around in-person or not in person. The thing that I keep hearing from the state level, from the administration and health and others, is that we are shutting things. We're trying to protect the healthcare system and keep it so our kids can go to school and people can go to work. And so, yeah, I'm not sure that. I think that's all.
Laura, I'm sorry, there was some noise in here. I didn't hear the last thing you said.
The last thing I said was, I think that's all I have to say right at this minute.
Okay, is there any other comments from the board?
Rich?
Yeah.
I'd like to have this put on the agenda for our next meeting to discuss after December break, whatever it's called.
Christmas break, right?
Yeah.
I think Bill's gone. Yeah. Okay, we can do that. Matt can, or I'm sorry, Matt, Peter, can you just make a note in the minutes that Mark is asking that the winter break period be discussed at the next meeting?
10-4.
Thank you, Peter.
Rich, if I can say one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I just want to say the reason I'm asking to have it put on the agenda and not have a big discussion about it now is that I think it needs to be out there and everybody needs to be aware that we're going to be having that discussion.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody? Going once? Twice? Okay, old business, ventilation system update. I see we got Chris Medina here.
Yeah, so speaking to Wardboro first, they are scheduled for Wednesday to have Alliance come in and start the controls work. Dover is still in the midst of their controls upgrade, which is still anticipated to be completed by Thanksgiving. By the end of this week, Alliance projects they're going to have the last 2 unit ventilators hooked up to the control system at Dover. And then the following week, they are scheduled to come in and install roof curb flashing for the new ERV, which is expected to ship the beginning of December. So that way, when it arrives, all they have to do is get it up on the roof and get it plugged in, and that'll start to be operational. The rooftop exhaust fans for Dover are expected to ship at the end of this month. And again, once those come in, they'll be installed. All this work is still anticipated to be completed by the end of December to be covered by the Efficiency Vermont Indoor Air Quality Grant. And the other news that we had was last week, we had Vermont Air Testing perform the full indoor air quality radon and PCB testing for all of the schools in the SU. And we're expected to get a preliminary report around Thanksgiving of what those results look like, and then a more detailed report about 30 days after that.
Chris, are you going to talk about the bus system too?
Absolutely.
So is there any question from anybody or any comments on the building? Air work, Matt and Tammy, are you all good? And you guys are being kept up to speed and okay. Any questions from anybody on that? Going once, twice, 3 times. Chris, bus system.
So I'm not sure, I wasn't on the last board meeting where we left off with that, but just a quick recap is the information for the bus purification we received that from Heather Gilbert, the operations manager for Southeast Vermont Transit. It's one of the systems that they've been exploring. So we were priced out the purifying units for 3 buses, 2 River Valley buses, and the 1 bus that is operated by West River Transportation that transports students for Wardsboro. They recommended 2 units per bus. The units are a cost of $2,500 each. So the total cost is to be about $15,000. These units are small. They don't take up too much space. They're about 16 inches wide, 10 inches deep, and 6 inches tall. Most likely will be mounted on the roof or the ceiling on the inside of the bus. This way they're off the floor, away from dust. The way they operate is through filtration, a lifetime reusable filter that's washable. And then they also have ultraviolet lights in them too that further do the disinfection of any air particulates that get trapped by the filter. I did talk to the company today and they have a high lead time on them. It is 12 to 20 weeks out for this particular model.
So I guess so we're looking to do all the buses for West River Transportation also through this SU?
Correct. So we did put into the CRF grant funds to do every bus that's operated through the SU, which includes all of the West River Transportation buses and all of the buses owned by our districts. And the funding was approved, but those funds do need to be spent by the end of December to be covered by that grant. And with that lead time, that's not going to be feasible at this point. So we would have to look at local funding. That's something I'm working with Lori on.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion then to get them? I mean, can we get them ordered by now and pay for them ahead of time? And does that count for the grant fund?
No.
Have a
Oh,
question.
there's Lori.
I'm here. You need to take delivery of them to have it be reimbursable.
So we should have ordered them a couple meetings ago.
You probably wouldn't have made it anyway. There is a hard and fast federal deadline of December 30th. And it's causing a lot of issues. There's a lot of money left that's going to be left on the table because we just can't get it all done. We're working our best to push through all expenses that we can at this point, but that is a hard and fast deadline. The check has to be cut by 12/30.
Okay. Laura, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, Lori, what are you doing any kind of contingency planning for a lame duck session where the deadline gets extended and or there's a second stimulus?
Sure, if there's a second stimulus, then we'll definitely look at these things. I would assume that the second stimulus would allow us to go back just like these COVID funds did, to be able to get reimbursement for some of these items that won't be here before December 30th. But right now, we don't have everybody I've spoken to. It's a hard no. It's a hard deadline. So
yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah, it has to be the feds that extend it at this point. So,
but I guess my question is, do you have any sense of like what kind of what an optimal second, what a plan B optimal timeline would be for any additional funds? So, like for instance, if something got passed by XYZ date, we would be okay. Do you have that kind of thought out or no?
A little bit, yeah.
Really
Chris and I
impossible.
actually spoke about it today, including Alex Rowe from Efficiency Vermont. There's still other within other districts. I think River Valleys, and Chris can, speak a little bit more to this, is pretty set with getting all of the HVAC equipment in on time and paid for on time. But there are other districts in our SU that that could use some more equipment that just won't be here. So sure, we're looking at all of that. Do I have a number? I don't have a number right now until we get things pushed through, right? We're just starting to gather all that information and see what we need.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, just a few quick questions for Chris. If we got a hold of these units, got them installed, would it allow us to close the windows for the winter? Is that, or would we still have to have windows open in the bus?
I can't particularly speak to the science of what would be the best route to go with that, but these will filter the air and also, purify the air. It would make it cleaner, but I mean, with our lead time, we're looking at maybe March, April by the time, if we ordered them today, that they would arrive. And then we are on the hook for getting them installed ourselves.
Okay. Another question. If you're talking about installing them on the ceiling/roof, I'm assuming that means we won't be taking seats, usable seats away.
No, it does not appear so. And with the size of them being only 6 inches tall, it's not even going to steal much of that headroom. So I don't think we'd be losing seating in the buses.
Okay, great. And last question, are there alternate devices that might be available sooner?
I was doing a little bit of research today to find them. It looks like a lot of what I'm finding are for buses that have full heating or air conditioning systems in them, and they have units that kind of plug and play with those. The standalone all-in-one units for buses that don't have full HVAC systems are not as common, and I think we're going to run into the same issue with lead times.
Okay, that's what I was afraid you were going to say. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to continue doing some research this week, but that's my thought.
Is there any other questions, Lori? Or any comments with Chris? Do we need to, Lori or Chris, Dwight, did you want?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I just thought, so I understand. I'm just curious. So the buses, we own what, 2 buses that the Dover School had, and the other one is the West River bus company. That's their bus.
Yeah, we own,
Is that right?
our district owns 2 buses, and then we subcontract through Wyndham Central. And
the Wyndham Central. Okay.
Right. And West River has a bus, and that was kind of my question is if the bus it runs in Wardsboro, but if it isn't available, are the other buses going to have it? So it was almost a moot point anyways. And I don't know, and maybe Tammy can tell us. I mean, we pretty consistently get the same bus for you guys all the time, Tammy?
Yeah, it pretty much is the same bus every day. Occasionally our driver will drive, for another event that's happening that they've contracted, or that West River has contracted out. But for the most part, it's mostly the same bus.
So that was kind of my question, Rich. So why are we paying wouldn't they be paying for the installation of this since we don't own that bus? I'm not sure why we're paying that
because
expense.
it's not in our contract. We didn't require it. I mean, maybe that's something that they'll start requiring in the contract, but to ask the bus company to do it, I think is not appropriate at this time. And I think they could argue against it. And, to me,
I'm sure there's funds available for them as well for a grant. So anytime you're upgrading a system for COVID, there's usually a grant available.
Well, and that's what we're talking about, and it could have all been funded under efficiency, under the that Lori and Chris are talking about, but we can't get them in quick enough, so we can't.
Yeah.
But we can also make them, if you folks want, you can decide to just authorize Chris to go ahead and purchase anything, kind of like we did with the Jeep, and say, go get, or I don't know if it's a Jeep, but with the food vehicle. We can authorize them to just do it. So if during the week Chris finds something, we don't have to wait another 2 weeks to the next meeting and then hopefully Chris can make it and Lori and everybody can make it. So that would be up to you guys, be up to the board. Okay, I guess no other comments from the board. Go ahead, Rick.
Just a quick question for Tammy and Matt. How full are our buses at the schools? Are we like at capacity with children in them? I see a lot of parents driving their kids into school on this end, and I just wanted to get your feedback as to how full the buses are on average.
So we've started having to make siblings ride together in the same seat because of the social distancing that's required. So I would say that for Wardsboro, the bus actually is pretty full. We've got about 15 riders in the morning and in the afternoon. And when you're spacing the kids out throughout the bus, it does fill up quickly because we're not able to use every single seat.
Okay.
Same story in Dover. No, I'm sorry, Rick. Sorry, you shifted. About the same. Yeah, we have about 20, 25 kids that use a bus. I think we can run at about half capacity and observe the spacing guidelines that we're trying to observe.
All set, Rick?
Thank you.
Matt, I am so glad that I am not the only one that when people move, I forget who they are. Go ahead, Mark.
So, because I don't want there to be any further delay, I'm going to make a motion that we authorize the administration to purchase units for the buses if they can find ones that could be installed. Chris, we're looking at a March, April delivery on those units.
Yeah, 12 to 20 weeks would bring us March, April.
Either way, I'm changing the motion I'm making to authorize administration to spend up to $20,000 on the units. I think it's too important that we should go ahead with it. COVID's not going anywhere.
So we have a motion to spend up to $20,000 to purchase the units for all three buses, Mark? Okay. Do we have a second from anybody?
I have a question. Could I ask
Well,
a question?
let's hang on. We got a motion on the floor. So before we can talk, we either have a second or the motion dies.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion to purchase the units for the three buses up to $20,000 by Mark, and Laura has seconded. Peter, do you have the motion? Are you set that we can move forward with discussion?
Yes, sir. There is no end date on that authorization, is there?
No.
Got it.
Mark, since you made the motion, you get first discussion.
Well, one, I'd like to ask that if we do this, that it be communicated with West River that we are very strongly requesting that bus be used solely for our use, so it's available every day for our use, unless obviously there's a mechanical problem. I don't like the lead time. I don't think any of us do, but I think that it's money that's worth spending. Weather might be better, it's still going to be bad, and COVID's not going anywhere. We own two of the buses. I think we can get West River to use that bus for us. Yeah, I think we need to move forward with that if we can do it.
Okay, Laura, you second it. Do you have anything?
No.
Okay, then Kate, you had a question, so this would be the appropriate time.
I had a question for Chris. I was going to ask if that amount makes sense and if that does Does that work for what we would need for the 3 buses? And what you've been finding out there so far?
Yeah, I haven't received any other pricing from other units that might be comparable, but that amount covers the SAN UV air units that we've originally explored.
I'll
Thank
say
you.
Kate.
Yes.
Rick or Dwight, do you have any questions? I don't know where Rick went.
No questions here.
Dwight?
No, I guess I don't have any questions. Do we know, maybe this was at the last meeting, do we know, maybe I do have a question. Do we know how effective they are? And have we talked about that? Or I'm sorry if I missed that.
Chris, can you answer that?
Yeah, they claim 99% effective at killing airborne particulates. I'm happy to share the brochures and information we have from them to the board for review.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Chris, I think a better question may be, since you're our transportation guru, what is your recommendation that this is a good move or a bad move? Maybe that would answer Dwight's question.
Yeah, I mean, as Mark presented, COVID's not going anywhere. It's something that will always be effective in the buses, and there's a warranty that'll last multiple years on some of the components in there. So it's an addition, even when COVID ends. By the time they come in, again, we might be into that area where we're going to be able to start opening windows again, and without being able to speak too much of the science of, you know, how much better it's going to make the environment, I can just leave it at that.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Matt, Tammy, go ahead, Matt.
So the only one piece of information to add is that one of the buses that you're talking about outfitting is at the end of life, and just want to make sure it makes sense to outfit an end of life piece of equipment with an expensive piece of equipment, or at least keep that into consideration when we're planning this.
So Matt, that was my next question when you guys were all done, was can it be moved to a new bus if we trade a bus in? And Chris, it seems like it would be something we'd be able to move, wouldn't it? Most of the time we get nothing for the buses, but they go to scrap or they become somebody's barn.
Yep. Yeah. From my understanding, it's going to be very easy for us to remove and repurpose into a new bus.
Okay. And Matt, thank you. So I guess too, Lori, we just kind of, and Chris, when we go out to bid for a new bus, if we're going to be doing that, or if that goes through Wyndham Central, I mean, that may be something we want to consider in any new buses we buy to have them outfitted with this, because like Mark said, even if COVID goes away and they get a vaccine, you know, who knows what the next airborne thing that we're going to fight. And also, we've always had, you know, tough times during cold and flu season anyways, and it may be better in the future for all the staff and the teachers and everybody that rides the bus. So sounds like a good move. Are you guys ready to vote? Is there any other comments, thoughts, questions?
Just want to, what was the date on the possible arrival again?
The lead times that I was given today when I spoke to them were 12 to 20 weeks.
12 to 20 weeks.
So is everybody ready to vote?
So what's the motion again, Rich?
Okay, hang on a second.
Oh, sorry.
Mark, before I get to you, Peter, would you just reread the motion, please?
Mr. Shaver move to authorize the administration to spend up to $20,000 to purchase air purification units for the 3 school buses. Second.
And that was seconded by Laura. You all set, Dwight?
Yeah, thank you.
Mark, last comment?
No, Lori had her hand up before. I didn't know if she wanted to speak. Right, never mind.
Okay, she's shaking her head no. So if there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify so by saying aye, please.
Aye.
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 Rick, were you an aye? I'm
No, I'm
sorry.
an A.
Okay. So I have, it appears as though the ayes have it.
Rick,
Yes,
not
Mark?
unanimous. You have to do a roll call.
Hang on a sec. It appears as though the ayes have it. I think I have one nay. It's Rick Thorpe. Is anybody disagree with that? I'm not gonna do a roll call, Mark, so
Okay.
gonna go with it and move it forward. Peter, so it's all but Rick was a nay, and the chair goes with the majority, okay?
One abstention, 10-4.
No, it wasn't an abstention, it was a nay. It's a
I'm
different.
sorry, I had one nay. Got it.
One nay, you had 4 yeses, and the chair's vote goes with the majority. Okay? We all good? Mark, I'm just, if we go through roll call votes, we're gonna be here all night, so I feel anybody disagrees with me, you guys can do that, and you guys are in charge of the meeting, so unless I hear somebody different, I'm gonna move forward. Okay, let's move on to approve accounts payable action. Lori, I think that's why you're here. You want to take over?
Sure, so this would be the 11-2 payables, or, excuse me, 518-810.56. There also was a special run done on 11-19 that is for the food service car, which I'll be picking up on the 23rd in St. Johnsbury for $25,038.
Can I,
The first big
Lori,
number.
can we get those numbers again? I'm sorry,
Sure.
518-810.56,
Yes, 0.56.
and then the one of the 19th is what?
The special run was 25,038.00.
Because it can't be, I mean, the 19th is in 3 days. I'm a little confused.
All right, so, but you approved it. It was written for the 19th because I was supposed to go get the car tomorrow, but I can't.
But we already voted to expend the money for the car, so we don't have to do that again, do we?
You're just approving it's an AP run. So no, you don't have to technically. So you're fine.
Okay. Okay, so we just need the motion to approve expenditures in the amount of $518,810.56. Would somebody make that motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Mark, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, sorry, Kate.
Oh, no worries, Dwight.
Oh, we'll give it to Dwight. Kate, no, we'll give it to Kate because then you.
Yeah, give it to Kate.
So, Mark, we have a motion and a second. Peter, you got the numbers okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mark. Questions, comments?
Only, these were the APs that we talked about at the last meeting and Bill sent us, correct? These aren't new ones. Okay.
Yeah, I left the last meeting, so I don't think you approved them at the last meeting.
No, we didn't. All right. Thank you. I'm good.
Kate,
No comments.
okay, anybody, any comments? Cool. Lori, I don't get this. We spent a bunch of time on $20,000, but on 518, $500,000, we're gonna give it to you in like 2 minutes. There's no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
It appears as though the ayes have it. Yeah.
Rich,
Yeah.
may I just say one quick thing about accounts payable for the next month or so? There will be probably several special runs, which you, River Valleys you have a process set up for where the board chair can approve those to go out the door. And this is related to the COVID money needing to get out the door by December 30th. So I just want to make the board aware that, we try not to do too many runs in between your board meetings, but we will need to do this to get the money out the door.
No, and it's important also for when we have expenses. That's why we assign a signatory at the beginning, you know, when we reorganize. So that's a
Right.
good point. Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
Is everybody okay to move on? Budget discussion and guidance to the administration. I see that we have another budget schedule that was sent with the packet. Looks something like that. It's got multiple colors on it and it gives some dates. And the River Valley's in green at the bottom of the page. Does everybody have that? So the reason this is on there, I believe, and that Lori's here, Lori does the second meetings because Bill can't stay for the whole time on the second meetings, and Matt and Tammy are here. And we need to give them some guidance because at the next meeting, which is on 12/7, they're going to present a preliminary budget to us to look at, or the first draft of the budget. And I know we've had some discussions with Bill on equity in education when we do the budget that they need to keep in mind. They also need to keep the, we've asked them in the past to consider when they do, I'm sorry, I always forget the name of it, our mission statement, the education and the guidelines that we set up. So is there any other thoughts from anybody on the board first, and then anybody else on budget that we should incorporate or ask the administration and Lori to work on for budget time? I'll give it to the board first. Anybody from the board? Go ahead, Mark.
So I would at least like to see costs involved with expanding foreign language to Wardsboro.
Okay.
That's Mark.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Anybody else on the board? Kate, Dwight, Rick, or Laura?
Yes.
Go ahead, Laura.
I think previously we talked about making sure that we have, I'd like to see a large, not large, but I'd like to see a healthy amount for web, unified web work, something that can be, that can include, I'd like to spend some money on it so that it's user-friendly, incorporated, well for teachers, and that it has good media on it. I'd like to make sure we come forward with obviously funding, well, not obviously, funding for both the IB and the STEM programs.
Okay, Laura, just to clarify, so when you're saying a large contribution or a large amount,
so
is that for the stuff that we've been kind of bouncing around with for a couple of years for?
Yeah, we've been bouncing around. Yeah, we've been bouncing it around
Okay.
for a couple of years. And what I'm saying is I'd like to see us start at a place where we're talking about a really, long lasting, user friendly, someone that can make sure that there's, that staff are integrated into using it for classrooms or whatever. So, I mean, it's going to cost us some money to do that. So I'd like to see it there, and let's see if we have the money to. And I'm thinking that's probably like $25,000.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was going to ask you, if you could
At least.
throw a number out. Okay. Is that it, Laura?
Yes.
Kate or Rick or Dwight?
No, I think both of the points that Mark and Laura brought up are excellent, and I think those are two things that should definitely be included to consider.
Thank you, Kate. Rick?
I'm going to go back to something Laura said last year. We had gone through almost the entire budget process, and then we asked for, I don't know, it was we as a board did, or it was Laura specifically, We asked, well, what would this look like if it was 10% less? Or what would this look like if it was 20% more? Are we going to start with a pie in the sky budget? Best possible education we can provide and then move backwards? Or are we going to start at a place that's kind of status quo with these few extra things added in? I just don't want to get to the end again and have to ask Lori to go back. Oh, Lori, go back. And what would this look like if it was 10% less? I mean, what's our starting point? Are we going to start with the highest possible number and work our way back, or what's going to be our strategy?
So may I respond to that, Richard?
Sure.
So it is my sense that because of our increased population, Rick, we should have some more flexibility in our budget. If that's not the case, you know, I would be probably saying something different. So I think I would be looking for, it's you can never, it's impossible for us to plan for no acts. But you know, if we look at what was last year and you know, try and not have any tax increased tax effect. I think that would be important.
So can I make
this year where we've already spent a bit more money than I think we're going to be a little bit deeper into our, I don't want to call it a war chest, but our, what do we call it, Rich? Help me out here.
Our reserves.
Our reserves. I think we're going to have dug into our reserves a little bit this year. And I think we need to watch that as we go into the budget season to see whether we're going to wind up with some sort of deficit spending come the end of the school year. And I think that it's important, Lori, for us to kind of know where we are as we move into the budget season. You know, have we spent, you know, per se $100,000 more, and I'm just picking a number, than we had budgeted to spend this year? I think that it's important for us to keep that in mind as we move forward and as we move into the budgeting season itself. It's my opinion.
So just one thing that we always did at the Dover board, and I thought we discussed this last year as a River Valley board, you know, our first look at the budget is usually, we don't really worry about what it's going to do to the tax rate. We want to see what the educationally sound budget is, that what Matt and Tammy and Bill and Lori and Chris and the whole gang feels that we need first. Because remember too that, you know, we may cut our budget by 50% and our tax rate goes up 100%, or we may increase the budget by 40% and our tax rates actually go down. I think trying to figure out the tax rate until the folks in Montpelier get in there and do their magic makes it really difficult. So my suggestion would be, if the board is good with it, is that, you know, Matt and Tammy give us what they need for an educationally appropriate budget. The things like Laura asked for and any additional stuff, maybe Lori, I don't know if we can do that as like an aside that's not actually in the budget, so we could see how it affects the bottom line of the budget. And then we can make some decisions there. And I think that's why we also push this out a little bit on the vote, so that we can see, you know, Rick, how we're doing this year and how things went. I mean, we may do really fine. A lot of money came in because of COVID. We may be right on budget, believe it or not, even with the additional students, but we're going to have additional revenue we hadn't planned on. And remember, those numbers are going to stay for a while, because I probably the legislature may keep something. But again, several times this year, you know, people would ask, how's it going to affect the budget? And I said, we got to do it. Let's move it on and we'll figure it out later. And it's worked out pretty well. So I'd like to, if folks don't have a problem with that, can we, and Lori, if that's doable for you guys, maybe the additional stuff we've talked about can be like a little separate block of items at the bottom that we can incorporate into the budget later, but it'll let us see what the bottom line looks like. Yeah.
So just to clarify, you would like the budget to be similar to last year's budget, and then with any additional, whether it be you know, anything that Matt or Tammy bring forward as a budget request. And then what Laura was talking about, and Mark, that actually is one of the budget requests that Tammy has put in for. So those you want as a separate line item at the bottom of the budget to see what it would increase it by. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is whatever Matt and Tammy and Bill say that we need to have a good education. So if they feel that the second language arts program is something that's needed, no, that goes in the budget.
All right.
But if there's something extra, like they say, hey, it would be really nice if we could have 2 Jeeps instead of 1 Jeep. That to me would be an extra. And that could go on the bottom, that it's not really they got to have it to do their job, but that it would be kind of pleasant to have maybe. And then those are the items we can look at to see where we fall in the budget.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. So,
but that again, I'm not sure. Is that okay with the board? Does that make sense to everybody? And does that cover everybody's concerns?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay, Mark, Laura's giving us thumb up. Rick, you
I'm okay with it.
that?
Yeah, no, it's, I just wanted to know where we were going to start, because I don't want it to get to the end and then have to make a lot of adjustments.
And Kate, you good with that, I think?
I'm
Dwight,
good.
you gave me a thumbs up. Let me throw one other thing out though, Lori, that I kind of going back to what Rick was saying also. One of the things that's allowed us, both Wardsboro and Dover in the past and together, to kind of take help with kind of creating a more stable tax rate has been the reserve funds that we can borrow from. Like this year, we took too much out. So I think, and I don't know what's happened in Dover. You haven't sent me any hate emails lately, so I'm hoping that we're getting the audit done and we can see where we really stand. And I know we got Dover to forgive of some money that should have been owed them. Do you think maybe at the next meeting too, part of the budget can also review our capital? And Matt brought up a good point earlier in the upper corner there, that, you know, we have a bus that's going to need to be replaced soon. So, you know, is it time, you know, we used to have in Dover a vehicle replacement fund, and we had the building funds, and I know we set those up last year and put some money in. Can you kind of maybe at the next meeting review those with us also?
I would love to. I've been wanting to for a very long time, as you know. We do have the final fiscal year 19 audit finally, after having to engage some legal letters being written, but we finally have it, and I have now sent that to our auditors that are auditing fiscal year 20 for River Valleys. They are very behind because they haven't been able to move forward either, and they are behind because of COVID as well, so that's not helping matters. I will do my very best for you. I've given you numbers in the past, and quite honestly, they haven't been right because I didn't have the right numbers coming from the past auditors. So I think that I will be conservative, as I usually am, when I give you these numbers.
Or maybe, Lori, too, next meeting, we take a look at the operating budget, and then maybe that first meeting in January, we can look at the reserve budgets.
That would probably be better in January to look at those. I do think that I can give you a good idea of where you're at for fiscal year 21. So that will be helpful to you, you know, because I don't think that you're falling behind. I mean, certainly if there wasn't $250,000 coming in from grant money for the HVAC system, then you would be for sure. But we're not looking that bad, knowing that grant money was coming in. So I think you are right on track. And I don't believe at this point right now that you would end in a deficit situation for fiscal year 21.
No, we want you to end us with a big reserve.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Thank you. Is everybody okay, Matt? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Rick, I'm not sure if this is a question for the board or for Chris, but I just want to make sure, is there anything we should be doing budgetarily in terms of this huge investment we've just made in HVAC, in terms of maintaining? Is there anything we should be thinking about as we're building that budget in order to maintain all these new physical assets? I just want to make sure it's on the table, or are we thinking about that? Maybe it's a question for Chris. I don't know.
Yeah, and Matt, I think, why don't you just, you need to meet with Chris beforehand to get his input on the budget. So I don't think we need to have a discussion here. Just, talk to him. Also, look at the transportation. I know that's been a big issue for you. That a lot of that's fallen on you to get the buses repaired and before when we've had issues, and to know all about injectors and bumps and stuff. So, and definitely on the buildings too, because we did have some issues in the buildings we wanted to upgrade, according to the engineering reserve study that Dwight worked on. So Chris, maybe you can review that and also give input, okay? Everybody good? Anything else? Chris, I think we should be, I'm sorry, on the budget. Matt and Tammy, you supposedly, I had a question. So in one of the WCSU executive committee meetings, we had talked, and I brought it up a little bit at the last meeting about that there, and Matt, I'll probably get it wrong, or Tammy, I don't know which one of you is better versed in it, but there was a consortium for online learning where if we were to pay for a teacher, then we would have so many slots available for online learning. And they actually have the online learning specific to grade level. And I think, Matt, you and Tammy were going to talk to somebody today, or meet with somebody, or Bill was going to meet with somebody and brief you guys. Can you, because that may be something to also talk about putting in the budget. I brought it up at the WCSU executive committee level to see if we want to do it like an agency fund to more maximize the number of students, because you can have up to 25, I was told. Do either one of you feel comfortable talking about that for a couple minutes?
I met with Jeff Renard today of the Vermont Virtual Learning Collaborative out of Springfield up at the Dean Center. And we talked about options for next year. We talked about options for this year in terms of providing some relief and to improve the program that we're offering to our remote learners. Jeff was feeling like the year is underway and it would be difficult to start halfway through the year. He did mention that there is what they call a to-go option, which is a prepackaged curriculum that is available. So a teacher can facilitate but doesn't have to create materials. That's available for K through 12. That would be available mid-year. It's something I would want to talk to Tammy about, whether or not we think that would be something that would relieve some of our teachers' workload. Otherwise, looking at next year, the limit is 20 students, Rich. So if we offered a full-time teacher, we would receive 20 student spots in the program. And that would mean we would be offering a full-time remote teacher. So a teacher who's not in the building necessarily. That would allow us to have 20 students participate in the remote program. The timeline for that would be, we would start those conversations with VTVLC in February. So this is timely for us to be making programmatic decisions and budgetary decisions now. If we were to add a teacher and allow 20 spots, we would need to budget for that now and make that option available for next year. So this is the time to do that. Let's see if there's anything else. There's quite a bit more. We talked for quite a while about the program. There are a few other options in terms of having a district liaison who can manage and help facilitate. That's pretty much the Reader's Digest version.
So Matt, maybe because we don't have a lot and we didn't prep the board for it, can you, when you have your talks with with Lori, Tammy, and Bill about the budget, can you, look into that and see if that's something you guys want to recommend? Because we would still get to count those 20 students that are learning remotely as our students. So it should be cost neutral to us, or maybe even a little bit. And also would that would also give us a staff member that we pay for that would be able to maybe help our staff do some remote learning, or do better remote learning if they need to, if we're still doing this next year, or give some tips or something. So if you can maybe prepare for that for us, guys, and we can have that discussion at the next meeting. And Peter, would you just add something about remote learning, teacher?
Yes, I have this.
Okay, and we'll make sure that's on the agenda. And then Matt, thank you for that. I hope it was a good conversation. I hope it's something that you may be able to help. The only other thing I didn't know if we should put in there, or how it deals with, and Matt and Tammy, if you could maybe look into it. I want to, Laura says it almost every meeting, and a lot of the board members, and I don't think, the staff and the, not just the certified staff, but all of our staff has really worked hard, and it's been such a troubling time. I know it's the same for the parents and the students and everybody. It's a really weird world we're living in. Can we look into, or is there supports for our staff, like a facilitator, a counselor, or a professional that can support staff during stressful time? And do we have enough of it? And is it something we need to move into, or add more to the budget? Or is it something that we can do now that we should think about too? So I had that note, and I had it under budget for some reason. So again, Matt and Tammy, I don't want to put you on the spot. So if you can just maybe do some research into that for us too. And maybe we need to have some line item or a section in the budget to deal with that in the future.
Richard,
Yes, Laura.
what would the goal be of those funds? I'm not 100% clear. I like where you're going, but what would the goal be so that they have maybe more runway?
I'm not exactly sure, and I was just going to throw it out there. I just made a note because in our business, we just met with the employee assistance person that we get through our insurance. And I know sometimes they have it through health insurance, but I don't know if we need to supplement it all. It would just be is there a person that the staff can meet, or do we have a person come in and do yoga with the staff for an hour every day, if that would help alleviate some of the stress? I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm just throwing it out to Matt and Tammy, so that we can think about that, and if we need to add that into the budget, or if we need to do it now, if it would be helpful. And maybe it's not helpful. Maybe the staff all runs laps around the gym. I don't know, and that's how they get their stress out. Or so just something I want to throw out there. And I had it under budget for some reason, and I should have brought it up earlier. But I think it would also be something in the budget, because again, I think like Mark said, we get by this virus, and what's the next thing out there that's going to kick us in the backside? So if we're good with that, are we good to move out of the budget discussion? So I skipped around a little bit. Chris, I think we're all set. If you need to bail, you're good. Unless, does anybody have anything for Chris and Lori? Go ahead.
Thank you. Both.
Lori's leaving us, I think. He was thumbing out. Thank you, Chris. I go back to, so we skipped around a little bit by the remote learning, but memorandum of understanding, we have to ratify this. So you should have gotten in your packets a memorandum of understanding between the contracted certified staff for Wyndham Central, and River Valley has to approve this because we do have Wyndham Central staff that works for in our buildings. And this is Matt or Tammy. Do you want to speak to this? I think Bill prepped you guys for this too. No, he didn't. I'm sorry.
I read it, but it's pretty self-explanatory, I think.
Yeah, my understanding from this was it was something that was happening more in the high school because of time that people needed, staff needed for planning sessions. So it mentions it's Leland Gray and West River, but unfortunately, I said it doesn't apply to the Dover and the Wardsboro building. We do have central office staff that works in there, and the Wyndham Central contract is slightly different than the River Valley contract. So it wasn't as important for the River Valley, but Bill felt that the River Valley board needed to approve it so that the Wyndham Central staff that was working in the buildings would be covered under this too. So if anybody'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding for River Valley, say, oh, go ahead, Matt.
I just had a question. I'm just reading on page 1 of the memorandum. It appears to indicate that it does apply to the River Valley's staff as well. Is that not the case?
Well, then I believe then it applies to River Valley staff also.
Okay, then the one thing I would just mention is that if you read down through it, it does note things such as, you know, compensations for not getting any breaks during the day, not getting any lunch breaks, no preparation periods, that sort of thing. So that I think is significant in terms of making a note about how that it does apply to elementary.
Okay, I'm gonna suggest that we not approve this until next meeting and discuss it, and we can have Bill here. He does a much better job of explaining it than I do.
Yeah.
I think what it is, Matt, is I think the West River contract was that they have a period that has to be identified during the day. And I think our contract has how many hours they have to teach. And I think that was a difference. That's why it didn't apply as much to the River Valley staff. But let's just confirm that. And again, there's so much stuff going on, I can't keep track of it all. So go ahead, Samantha.
Rich, I worked with Heather Sperling, we're co-presidents of the WCEA, with Bill, and on this MOU, and it does cover River Valleys. We do not have a specified 30-minute planning time. It's based on the number of hours during the week, but it also allows the flexibility for staffing under these circumstances called COVID. So we felt it was important to make sure that we included the River Valleys, even though it's not specific to that time period. But the details cover teachers in our SU as well, in our district. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. Do you mind answering some questions since you were involved in negotiating this?
I can sure as heck try.
So would somebody like to make a motion and see if Samantha's explanations that we may be able to move it forward if she doesn't mind speaking to it? Or do you want to wait for Bill and Samantha? You'll probably be at the next meeting anyways. And
if you guys are more comfortable with Bill, that's fine. That's fine by me. It's been signed and approved by the WCEA, so that the union has voted on it.
yeah, and we approved it at the WCSU level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just don't want to put you on the spot, Samantha. I trust you. It's not that I don't trust you. I just didn't want to also stick you on the spot because you weren't prepared to talk about it.
No, it's fine. If people have questions, I'll do my best.
Okay. Anybody from the board? Go ahead,
When
Mark.
you read it, I did not read it as being for River Valleys, so I would appreciate having another meeting
Okay. Mark?
about it.
In that case, I'll hold most of my questions with the exception of one, which is, has West River ratified this yet?
I'm good. I believe they're doing that tonight. Although yeah, because we didn't vote on it until the 10th. So they will be doing that tonight as well, I believe.
Okay.
And the WCSU approved it. Wyndham Central has approved it already. Okay, so why don't we, Peter, we're going to put the memorandum of understanding off for another meeting.
Got it.
Thank you. I am really sorry, guys. I got moving here. Do we have any, when we finished old business, I didn't ask, did anybody else have any other old business? Okay, and then under new business, does anybody have any other new business that I missed? Matt, I don't know. You sent an email out late too, and I didn't get to read the whole thing, but you had an issue at the school. Do you want to talk about that in the response? Because I think it showed that people, that people were really, there was a situation. I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about it or if that was just an email out to everybody.
Yes, that was just an email to notify you and Rick. There's no specific thing to report. There was a case where a parent found out that her family had been exposed by a visitor, and the visitor failed to disclose that they had been exposed and were awaiting test results. And the test results came back and they were positive, and they failed to notify the family until after they had visited and gone home. So as you can imagine, this is some of the fear that, that you read in the staff letter. And as I've been thinking about this throughout the meeting, I would just like to come out and thank the staff for putting together their letter. I think the spirit of that was what we deal with daily. I know most of you don't work in a frontline job or a place where you're exposed to hundreds of people a day or 100 plus. And so you can't fully understand and appreciate the stress and the intensity that the staff feel on a daily basis sometimes. So today's case, we hope the student who will be tested, who will be quarantined and tested on schedule, we hope that comes back negative. If that comes back positive, we follow the agency and the Department of Health guidelines on notification. And the staff reacted swiftly and efficiently to isolate the student, get him home, get the rooms cleaned, get the common surfaces disinfected, in the event that the student may have contracted the virus. We won't know that, and we're teetering between students' privacy rights and trying to get information out, as you can imagine. But it was something that the school experienced today, and I thought did a fantastic job handling it. And but I think it is representative of some of the sort of fears and nervousness and stress that we face in doing our jobs. So that's a little brief, but.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. Next on the chopping block is policy. Mark and Kate, I'm gonna let you guys run through these. Well, actually, let's start with C11, students' freedom of expression et al. We voted to warn that, and it was posted. Matt and Tammy, thumbs up. You got it in your buildings. So the next motion would be to adopt policy C11, students' freedom of expression et al. Somebody like to make that motion?
I'll move that we adopt.
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead, Kate.
Oh, I'll second.
Okay, Mark, she let you move it and Kate seconds it. Peter, do you have that?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion, Kate, Mark,
None.
Matt, Tammy, have any comments on it? You guys ready to vote? All those in favor signify so by saying aye.
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 It appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The next one, C20, Student Conduct and Discipline et al. Wording discussion I have underlined, and we need to adopt because I believe that was, we voted to post that, notice it, and Matt and Tammy, it was posted in your buildings and where everywhere it's supposed to be posted. Mark, was there something with the wording discussion?
We had that discussion at the 11-2 meeting.
Okay, I think Rick had brought that up. Rick, are you all set?
I think I'm all set at this point. I mean, I'd really like to hear from Matt and Tammy. When you read through this, this is an awful lot of work for the two of you. I mean, and is this something you're going to bring to the board? Policies and procedures for, I mean, what do we call them? They're not policies and procedures. They're
administrative functions.
Thank you. I mean, are you ready to tackle this? This is number one. This is a recommended policy. This is not a required policy. And number two, it's a ton of work if you've read it through.
They'll have to make up procedures, but procedures aren't voted on by the board. That's voted on by, or not voted on, but that's created by Matt and Tammy. So I think that's a good discussion. Let's do this before we do that. Let's make a motion to adopt it and second the motion, and then we can have the discussion. Let Matt and Tammy talk about it. That's okay with people.
So I'll move that we adopt C20.
I'll
Second it. Okay, so Mark moved and Kate seconded that we adopt C20 and it's been properly posted. Do you guys, Mark and Kate, do you want to yield your spots to Matt and Tammy and let them answer Rick's question?
Yeah, I'd like to hear.
Tammy, we'll let you
Yes,
go
please.
first if you want, or Matt, I don't care.
We have put this policy in action in the past. It is a ton of work, but I think it is well worth the work that has to get put in to, you know, abiding by the policy. Yeah, I mean, it is a ton of work, but that's really all I've got.
Matt, you good?
Yeah, just add, Rick, that a lot of this is student conduct and discipline. These are already practices that are in place. So this isn't new to us. It just kind of, it's a slightly different name. It includes some different things that were under some different policies. So it's really kind of part of the large package of the overall discipline system in the school. But I do think we need to, and Tammy and I have talked about updating our procedures so that they're consistent between both schools, so that we're collaborating on those resources as well. So that development will take a little time, but I think we're ready for that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you're up for the task. It seemed like an awful lot, and it's all going into your handbooks, and it's all available to the public, and it all needs to be enforceable. And I just think that student conduct is something really difficult to put your finger on and say, this is good conduct, this is poor conduct, and this is what you get for poor conduct. I just think that things will come up throughout the year that will be conduct that you didn't think of, and then all of a sudden we're in this little quagmire of what do we do to enforce it? So I just wanted to bring that up and make sure you guys were feeling good about it.
Thanks.
And one of the things too is, remember, the reason Rick, you and I have had this discussion a lot, is there's a lot less policies now, was because administrative procedures, administrative actions, whatever, they get to, that's something that doesn't have to be approved by the board. The policy has to be approved by the board, and it's pretty rigid. Their procedures, they can adopt and change them as they need to. And if they go through the year and there's stuff that they missed, they can add to it without having to go through a whole procedure. Mark?
Yeah, I just wanted to, can't remember if we had this discussion in a board meeting or just in the committee meeting, but we brought this policy forward in large part because of an incident that occurred that wasn't covered in a current policy, which would have been covered in this policy had it been, excuse me, had it been in place. That's all.
Yeah, I think it was at the hearing we had that discussion. So it was at a board meeting, but it was in executive session for the hearing of the student. Is that correct? Does that sound right, Matt? Okay. Any other discussion? So the motion is to adopt C20 student conduct and discipline et al. Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 It appears as though the ayes have it.
Aye.
Oh, there she is. Appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It's a unanimous decision. Next one is B5, employee unlawful harassment. It's the committee's recommendation that we make a motion to warn this and that it be posted to be voted on at the next meeting. Would somebody please make a motion to warn Article B5?
I'll make a motion to warn Article B5.
Thank you, Kate. Kate moves it. Mark?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to warn Article 5. Kate, you want to bring us up to speed on it?
You want to take it, Kate?
I'll let Mark take it. I think Mark's better versed in this.
The VSBA updated the existing policy in the middle of last month. The primary, if I'm remembering correctly, the primary reason for the update to this policy was Title IX. So they changed some language, but for the most part, they added some training information in there and updated the legal references. So it's not a huge change, but it is definitely updated from their prior version.
Sorry, training information, you were garbled.
Yes, that's correct.
Are there any questions from Mark? Any discussion amongst the board? Amongst anybody? Hearing none, are you ready to vote? All those in favor signify so by saying aye.
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 It appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it, a unanimous decision, Peter. So Matt and Tammy, we got to get that posted, please. Next one is F31, Intradistrict School Choice Program for Elementary. There's a recommendation that we readopt this. It's an existing policy. The only change that was recommended is to change it from F31 to F50 to avoid confusion. If we don't make any major changes, we do not have to rewarn it. We can just readopt it. Is there anybody that would like to make a motion?
I'll move that we readopt F31.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so Mark moved, Kate seconded that we readopt. So the only change is that it'll be updated. It'll show that it was adopted on this date and that it's we're just changing the number, which is not a substantial change.
And
any questions? Go ahead, Mark.
I just want to say, hey, Cabernet. Sorry, my dog's being a pain. What we decided to do it with at Matt's recommendation is to make all RVUSD specific policies numbered 50 and above. VSBA has their numbering currently from 1 to 30 something. and they don't anticipate hitting 50 in anytime in the near future. So this just gives us a range so that we don't conflict with numbers with either old or new policies from the VSBA. And we'll have one more policy to renumber coming up in the near future as well.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Is there any questions or everybody ready to vote? Rick, you all set? Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of readopting policy F50, the former F31, please signify so by saying aye.
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 It appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it, Peter. It's another unanimous decision. And our last one is C13 homeless students, which I believe is a brand new policy, and it's required as of this past fall. So we need to warn this one because it is a new policy, and it'll be policy C13 homeless students. Could I get a motion moving on to the floor?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so Mark moved and Kate seconded to warn and post for warning policy C13 homeless students. Mark, you made that motion, I believe. So do you want to speak to it first?
It's a new policy the VSBA put out in October, and it is based on the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, and it is a required policy. If anyone has specific questions, I can answer them. Seems pretty straightforward.
Matt, maybe you can help me with the question, or Tammy. So we just had a homeless student hearing, and we didn't have this policy in place. What were we, do you remember what were we basing our decision on? We were basing on what Mark mentioned is that decision, but how come is this something new that they're now recommending? Do you not know? Okay.
Well, Matt, if you want, I was just going to say, I believe it was just based on the McKinney-Vento Act directly, rather than kind of through a secondary media the policy itself. So the act laid out what had to be followed.
Good, Matt. I'm sorry.
I think that's my interpretation too, is that it's really just a state level policy for a federal law. The McKinney-Vento law is a federal law, and so we have to follow it. I think this just makes it an official policy with procedures for Vermont schools. It sounds, the language is almost identical from my quick read to the McKinney-Vento Act.
Okay. Thank you. I just wasn't sure because I know that around Irene, we also had some homeless issues and we never had a policy because we were told we didn't need one. So, you guys ready to vote? Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Everybody keeps moving around. All those in favor then signify so by saying aye.
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 It appears as though the ayes have it. The ayes have it. So Matt and Tammy, you just got 2 new ones to post for us. And then Mark, the second meeting in December, if we have one, you'll be bringing us some more, correct? You and Kate and your group.
That's correct. I believe they only have one to post, just C13. F50 doesn't need to be.
I thought B5 and C13.
Oh, you're right. You're right. My apologies.
And then F31 we approved, and then the other 2 had been posted, C11 and C20.
And our next,
everybody beyond Matt, I was putting him to sleep almost. Okay. I have nothing else. Matt, Tammy, you all good? I do have one executive session on a contractual item. Matt, I just, and publicly, I want to comment you and your staff, though. It sounds like you guys, jumped on some stuff this week and it's been really difficult. So you've had some issues and it seems like it works out, and you definitely have the support and the thanks to the board. And you can convey that to all your staff. And Tammy, thank you for keeping everything going in Wardsboro for us too. And you guys are doing a great job. And when I look around at what other schools and in other districts are doing, we really appreciate you and our staff, and we thank you for all the hard work you guys are doing. It's some really difficult, strange times we got to live through in the last few years, the 100-year flood and the 100-year pandemic. And I think everybody's done a fantastic job, and we really appreciate it. And there wouldn't be a reason for us as a board to be here and have these, to do our job if you guys weren't doing a great job with us. So we really appreciate it. And even let the parents know. I mean, if a parent realized something like that, it would have been really easy to just kind of try to, sweep it under the carpet. So our parents are doing a great job too, and the community's been very supportive. So, if we all work together, I think we have a little bit more hardship for a few more months, and, maybe we come out the other side next spring. It'll be like, it'll be a real rebirth and a real moving forward for everybody. So thank you to everybody, parents, teachers, staff, and our administrators. I know there's been a lot of burden on you guys and to Bill and the central office as well. So I can't say thank you enough.
Rich?
Half of the board also.
Rich?
Yes,
I just want to say one thing and along those lines. In the last week, I've been speaking to a number of friends and colleagues that I have across the entire country, and telling them about what's been going on here and how things have been operating. And they are jealous at the efficiency that you all have created, and the ability to maintain in-person education in such a ridiculously crazy time. So I just wanted to share with you that it really is, you guys have really done an impressive job, and we really thank you for it.
Tammy?
Thank you for the support that you've given us, and it definitely does take a team. It does take the parents working with the teachers and working with the administration, and all of us working together to make it successful. And we do really appreciate hearing your kind words and your support. It means a lot.
Thank you, Tammy. If everybody's good, I'd like to ask Tammy and Matt to stay in executive session with us for a little bit, but I'd like to entertain a motion to move into executive session for a contractual issue.
So moved.
And I don't know if we're going to make a decision or not, but Rich, we're going to have to boot you out and then bring you back in. And Peter, do you want me to just let you know if any decisions are made when we come out?
That'll work, or I'll wait for you if you want.
I don't think you have to wait. I don't know how long we'll be, but
Okay.
I think you did a great job. Thank you.
I'll have to check the recording for some things anyway.
Okay, sounds good. Rich, you all set? So let's let's make a motion, move into executive session for contractual.
I think Rick made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rick, you moved?
I did move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Rick moved, Mark seconds. Any discussion?
Rich, you can come right back in. The waiting room is still there.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Sounds pretty unanimous. So we move to executive session for contractual. Bye, Peter. We'll see you in a few minutes, Rich. There's no, by unanimous consent at 8:31, we came out of executive session. There was no decisions made. Richard will work with the administration on a plan and get back to the board at the next meeting. Our next meeting is the December 7th at 6 p.m. And the big item will be the first draft of the budget.
Great.
I just need, oh, Matt's back too. Hi, Matt. Matt and Tammy, let's talk. What time's a good time to talk tomorrow? I have a 10 o'clock conference call. Well, actually, let's adjourn the meeting. The three of us can stay for a minute.
Sounds good.
Okay, motion.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So moved.
Laura moved.
Matt, yeah.
Kate seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right.
Hey, thank you guys. Mark, I'll talk to you.